My name's Wade Watts. My dad picked that name because it sounded like a superhero's alter ego, like Peter Parker or Bruce Banner.
Hey everybody, it's Charlie. This is going to be my Ready Player One Easter egg video. Obviously, everything in the movie was an Easter egg, or it was covered in Easter egg graffiti. Like if you look at the walls, there's graffiti on everything because of the post-apocalyptic environment. Everything is covered in like Pixar, Disney, pretty much anything from the history of video games in the world. Like it gets pretty crazy. So technically there's hundreds and hundreds of Easter eggs. I limited this list because I didn't want to make a video that was going to be an hour long. So just careful for spoilers if you haven't seen the movie yet. But in no particular order and sort of combining a couple different video game Easter eggs and things just to keep the list down. The Star Trek funeral, probably one of the funniest jokes of the film. He just gets right up out of the coffin. Batman helping people climb Mount Everest. All the other DC Comics Easter eggs, the Adam West Batmobile during the race, you have Deathstroke, Harley Quinn, the Joker, Artemis's Akira motorcycle, the Speed Racer Mach 5, the van from the A-Team, the Bigfoot monster truck, the DeLorean that he drives that's been modified with the lights from Kid on Knight Rider. There are a bunch of Star Wars references. When he completes the first challenge, Anorak says, "Nice job, Padawan." They also have an R2-D2 replica sitting in their apartment at the end of the film. Sorrento tried to tempt him with the Millennium Falcon. "You have the Millennium Falcon in here? Oh yeah, I can get that for you." The whole endgame raid environment is set on Planet Doom from Voltron. There was even a lion from Voltron during the big final battle. And we'll talk about that in a second. That's also on my list. But there was so many Easter eggs during that, I tried to condense that one down. The Zemeckis Rubik's Cube that turns back time. Robert Zemeckis directed the Back to the Future movies. One of the funnier ones was IROC name-dropping the classic Tootsie Pop commercial. How many licks does it take to get to the center of the Tootsie Pop?
How many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop?
A good question. Let's find out. 1, 2, 3.
There were a couple of Jurassic Park references. I know that's been in the news lately because they just announced Jurassic Park 3. They added the T-Rex, obviously the most famous character from that franchise. You probably also heard about the Arnold Schwarzenegger Last Action Hero Easter egg because people were talking about that last week. That was playing in one of the theaters along the race circuit in that first big sequence. The Robocop Easter egg that people were talking about was featured on a billboard. It was Delta City that was mentioned. That's the city from Robocop. Because IROC also quoted Hamlet, a lot of people were taking the skull that formed his body to be a Hamlet Easter egg too, when he said, "The steampunk pirate king, I knew him well, Sorrento." And also, when he pulled out the special shield that they activated later in the film, it was in the box from Gremlins that Gizmo came in. They even gave Gary Gygax from Dungeons & Dragons fame a shout-out by saying the gold mines of Gygax. There was the Clark Kent Christopher Reeve Superman disguise. You could tell it's his version of the character because of the way the glasses are shaped. The Iron Giant, probably the literal biggest Easter egg next to Mechagodzilla, but also probably the biggest laugh in my theater was the Terminator 2 Easter egg when it went down below the lava and did the big thumbs up that Arnold gives at the end of that movie. Sort of getting into that big final battle scene. So obviously it gets insane here. You'd have to pause the movie and go frame by frame at least 30 or 40 different times to catch all the Easter eggs because literally every character or every couple of groups of characters is from different IP, from video games, from movies. There's the secret weapon, Chucky, that he whips out. Oh my god, it's Chucky. There's the group of Halo Spartans. There's Chun-Li. Ryu from Street Fighter also appears earlier during the race. There's the Overwatch characters, Duke Nukem, Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, the Battletoads, and the Ninja Turtles, both in this big fight, which is funny because the Battletoads are kind of like the knockoff Ninja Turtles. Batgirl even shows up. I even thought I briefly spotted Obi-Wan Kenobi, but he was kind of out of frame and it moved by a little too quickly, so I can't confirm that. One of the biggest classic Easter eggs is one of the challenges from the books, the original Easter egg from Adventure on the Atari. They wound up switching the order of some of the challenges in the books, but I can understand why they saved this for last. There's Parzival's Hadouken from Street Fighter when he's defeating Sorrento. Sorrento's avatar himself kind of looked like an evil Superman version of his own face, but it's made to look like Sorrento's face if he were an evil version of Superman. Creepiest Easter egg winner goes to that whole sequence from The Shining in the second key. Creepy naked old lady in the bathtub is probably one of the most haunting moments in all of cinema. I dare you to go watch the real version of that at some point. And I love the way that they reference Stephen King when they were talking about the creator hates his own creation, because Stephen King absolutely hated Stanley Kubrick's treatment of the Shining movie. Completely different from the book, especially with the big hedge maze ending to that. But I love the way that the movie used that for comedy. There's all the outfits that he cycles through when he's trying to figure out what to wear when he's going to meet Artemis at the club. The Michael Jackson Thriller outfit. Prince's Purple Rain costume probably got the biggest laugh out of me. Buckaroo Banzai, obviously a deep cut. The joke about Halliday's favorite first-person shooter being GoldenEye on the N64. I wasted so much time playing that game. Slappers only mode. She gets pissed off at him. I know what slappers only means. They even turned the logo of the movie into an Easter egg, like you travel through a maze here, and you get to the center of the O, and it's an actual egg, meant to represent the egg that they're trying to find at the end of this movie. Overall, I'll say, without doing a full-blown review of the movie, because I don't think that's totally necessary, it worked, it was fun. I know a lot of people are back and forth on how it treats pop culture, but if you understand the book a little bit, even if you haven't read it, you understand that that's like the whole point of this, is that it swims in nostalgia for pop culture. I feel like nobody but Steven Spielberg could have brought this movie together. You'd have to be a really powerful person in Hollywood to get everybody that owns all these different IP to agree to let them be used in the film. I'm sure they had to pay a lot of money for some of it, but because Warner Brothers released it, I think that's why you're not seeing any Marvel characters in here. That was a big question. People are like, why are there so many DC characters and so many from other different companies, but there's no Marvel stuff in here?
Doesn't sound right.
Well, that's true.
The film itself is really like the Roger Rabbit of present day. If you haven't seen that movie, it's amazing. Go back and watch it. Robert Zemeckis also directed that. There's so much Back to the Future during Ready Player One. Robert Zemeckis is also responsible for Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which involves a lot of Disney sharing IP with Warner Brothers, which is just a crazy scenario that you never think would work out.
I'm sorry I yanked your ears.
All the time you yanked my ears?
And if you look at the laundry list of requirements that they had for each of the characters, you can see why some of them are featured very briefly and why some of them get really long continuous shots. Like the Iron Giant is featured very prominently several different times, but some characters only show up in the corner of the frame or in the background. I think that was part of the bargaining arrangement. We'll let you use our characters, Warner Brothers, but they're only allowed to be used in specific scenes. You can't show them certain ways. But if you spotted any really cool Easter eggs that you love that I didn't mention during the video, just write them below in the comments. Like I said, there are hundreds of them, so you could watch the movie 5 or 6 times and still find new stuff. But that's kind of the point. I feel like regardless of how much money it makes in the theaters, it'll do well on home video and streaming just because people want to spot all those Easter eggs. There'll be a whole bunch of trailers dropping in the next couple of days between Marvel, Star Wars, and everything else that's coming up, so be sure to subscribe to get everything if you're just finding me for the first time. Leave all your requests for bonus videos in the comments below too. Monday is the National Championship, so I'm expecting a couple trailers to drop during that. But while you wait for everything, click here for my brand new Infinity War video, and click here for my last big Easter egg video for Thor Ragnarok. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.